been searching for love, moaning for love, giving everything I know. Oh, 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 baby. When you touch me, baby, my heart skips a beat. Loving you, baby, have meant everything to me. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Everything to me. Every night when I look into your face, I know, baby, I know it's you that make my life complete. Wanting you, baby. Oh, I can't get enough of you, baby. Can't get enough of you. Ooh, I was crying when I felt your love. This time I know it's for real, baby. Ooh. No more bad dreams, baby. No more afraid to open the door and let you in. Oh.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I just want to do a special thank you to Variety. They've been moderating a number of our panels and helping us with the festival overall. And so I'm actually just going to pass it over to Peter Caranicas from Variety, and he's going to introduce the panel and take it from here. He's a professional.
Thank you, Al. Variety is delighted to be here. All of us are. This is about filming in San Francisco and filming in the Bay Area. And over the years, San Francisco and its surroundings have really been a major character in a lot of movies. You all remember Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak. The chase scenes in Bullitt with Steve McQueen. I mean, these are all iconic, legendary movies. A lot of them have been shot here. One of the latest to film in the region is the film Jobs. It's the story of the early days of Steve Jobs from his high school days up to about the year 2000. And it's appropriate that we talk about this film here because we're in Palo Alto, we're in Silicon Valley, and that film was partly shot in this area. Ashton Kutcher plays Steve Jobs in that movie. With us here is Josh Stern. He's the director of that film. So we're going to talk about how that film came to be shot here. Also, we have Freddie Waff, who's the production designer on Jobs. We also have Lauren Machado, who's with the San Francisco Film Commission. And one of the most recent projects she worked on is the new Woody Allen movie, which shot in San Francisco. And at the end, Patrick Ranahan is a location manager who's based in San Francisco and knows this area inside out and has been involved with a lot of projects filming here. So it's a great panel, and I want to start with Josh. How did Jobs come about? Who was behind it financially, and how did they decide where to shoot?
Well, there's a businessman out of Dallas who really decided that this story needed to be told, and it was really a labor of love for him. He reached into his own life and his own funds and made it happen. And so once he contacted me, the ball got rolling. We started putting it together and casting it and bringing on the crew. And obviously, shooting in this area, it was an interesting conundrum. Because we were going to shoot mostly in Los Angeles. We also found that I think in the Palo Alto area, it's just so beautiful, but it's very you know, it's gone through such a transformation, you know, that to try to shoot 1973 was actually would be more of a challenge there as it would in certain parts of the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, because it doesn't exist as much anymore here as it did then. But even though we figured we couldn't shoot a lot of it, I think it was an early decision to try to shoot portions, certainly establishings and aerials and that and so forth. And I believe the financier got in touch with the Steve Jobs' stepmother, who has the house that Jobs grew up in, whose garage they worked on the first Apple board, and reached out, and they made it happen. So we came out here and we were able to shoot those scenes in the house.
In the actual house.
In the
where Jobs
actual
grew up.
house, yeah. So that was a thrusting reason of why we came here for that. There was a moment where we were considering shooting it in Stanford for the homebrew in the theater where they used to do the homebrew club, where people went, but we weren't able to make it work exactly at the same time. But we did come up here, and we really had a very good experience. You know, as a director who loves San Francisco and has set many films in San Francisco, it's very common that they will tell us, screenwriters, don't set it in San Francisco because it's really hard to permit. It's very hard to get, especially in the city. Though I've always wanted to shoot something in San Francisco. I set a whole movie there once, and it's the easiest thing to do to try to move it somewhere else.
Right.
But it is such an amazing place, and there's a lot of talent here, an amazing amount of talent.
How much of Jobs did you shoot in San Francisco compared to Los Angeles?
We really did only shoot about, 5%, right?
Yeah, we shoot for 4 days, 5 days.
A week. Well, we'll consider a week. Yeah, a week. I think but when you see the film and you see all of the aerials and the establishings and the house and the area, it does feel very much like we spent a lot of time. But I think Jobs, in my opinion, is a quintessential sort of California story of the early 70s. It's, in speaking to everybody that was involved, it felt very much like, kids in the valley, and they're in Los Angeles, there's a San Fernando Valley, and where we saw it and speaking to, where Jobs grew up, it was very much like all those post-war little valley places in California. I mean, it had that vibe. It was just, it was a story of the valley, and it actually made the transition to be able to shoot the places we shot in Los Angeles really jive very comfortably with a lot of the area that we saw here. Mm-hmm. I think most people, obviously everyone from the area will pinpoint that as not X, Y, and Z. But for the continuity and the fabric of the film, it was pretty sort of seamless. The neighborhoods, the bungalows, the kind of vibe that it had, and we did do a lot of research of what places looked like, and so where the bite shop was, we were able to go to a place, I think, in Burbank, where, to be honest, the streets still seemed like it was the 70s and 60s and 50s even, and actually was much easier to replicate there,
Mm-hmm. Freddie, what were your challenges making the area look retro? I mean, you had to go back a couple of decades.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we did lots of research, and one of the things that you find when you look back 30 years ago is the things that are most different now are the amount of clutter and signage and stickers and just things that didn't exist 30 years ago. The advertisements, bus benches, and those are the things that when we were scouting, those are the things you have to clear out of your mind when you're looking at a location. You have to say, well, this location's great. Once you peel these things away. So it was more about finding the location and then sort of uncovering it by removing the 30 years that had settled on it since 1970. So that was sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. That was a big challenge for us, was to be able to sort of, for me, to recognize the location and to take all that stuff away.
How much scouting did you actually do? How many days?
I scouted forever. It seems like you can ask.
You're
Josh.
still scouting.
I'm still scouting. But literally, because I think scouting is a very important, especially when you're trying to tie Palo Alto to portions of Los Angeles and have it be seamless. I really had to scout and beat the bushes to find places that weren't recognizable as Los Angeles, because it's so beautiful up here. It is so distinctive that I had to spend a lot of time scouting to find those pockets and those places in Los Angeles that hadn't been seen by every TV show and every feature out there. So it was one of the things I had to do a lot of research on Palo Alto and the neighborhoods and what they looked like, and then force my location scout to take me out every day until we found all the locations.
Yeah. Lauren, I'm going to skip over you for a second just to go to Patrick. Patrick, I want to talk about the recent HBO movie, Hemingway and Gellhorn, where Nicole Kidman plays Martha Gellhorn, and it's Clive Owen who plays Ernest Hemingway. Now, that film takes place all around the world, and yet it was shot entirely in San Francisco and surrounding area.
Correct.
How were those filmmakers able to replicate so many places in such a small area?
Specifically in that one, I just had to find like a block of a place in the world. So, like I was telling you, driving across the Dumbarton Bridge, I forgot that we had shot part of China in there when he was going to meet Chiang Kai-shek. We just did some plate shots of the salt flats, and Chris Morley put in some rice fields, and Nicole Kidman went up and used an outhouse there, and we had China. And then it was right on the bridge over there. And then every little piece was just finding a block of Shanghai and Chinatown, or 2 blocks of, or a little piece of a garden in Marin that matches with the house in Cuba or in Key West. So it was really finding just a little spot because they were nesting in existing footage.
But you must have had to use digital technology and extensions to make it look authentic, right?
Sure, they did. I mean, I'm the idiot that finds the block. So I'm the guy that guys like this push around and make me drive in circles all day.
Over and over.
And spill coffee in my lap and all that nonsense. But yeah, I find the block, the guys with the technology make it fit in. So I found all the little pieces. And I mean, it was a year of work of finding it. I don't know how long you guys.
We didn't have a year.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time finding those little blocks.
But it's very important, you know, I mean, when you do a movie like this, the first thing we knew when we were entering it was if it's a location movie, that you have the time to find the locations, because that is so important to give the sense of being in a place. I think on some level when you go to movies, you're sitting in the theater, if it's all been shot on a stage and every set has been constructed and isn't actually in the world, there's a subconscious, I don't know, you're not even aware of it, but something will feel a little bit off, the dimensions of it will. And I always think that, you know, it can affect, and if we got very used to building things, when you could enter a real space, you know, if we had an art gallery in here in a movie, that, you know, look at the windows, the dimensions of this place that exist as we walk in, and to try to recreate this would be $50,000 just to get this scene. You know.
The textures of the brick.
Well, I did a couple with Phil Kaufman, who did Hemingway. I did
yeah.
The Right Stuff, and I've done a couple of his films. And he uses this analogy of like Ali's jab, which is all the details. Like the jab in the first 3 rounds doesn't seem like much. But by the 12th round, you're begging to quit because it's just tearing you to pieces. So all the details, I would be like, come on, Phil, this is perfect. And he's like, dude, it's just a little. So all these details, I would have to keep. Like with Phil, we did The Right Stuff, and we did it all around here. I mean, at Ames was where they're walking around the wind tunnels. And, you know, this Alan Parker's film, Birdie, all the stuff with Cage and Modine is at the Agnew State Hospital over somewhere down here.
It's a great film.
Yeah, and all that. So, I mean, all kinds of amazing little details that have made up these great films have been done, like, right here. You can
And
drive
that's-
away from.
That
It's
is what
amazing.
we don't have to, as much as I have to sell San Francisco sometimes as a filming destination, maybe to a producer who's worrying about the budget. At the same time, it's about authenticity and this not having to stretch it to make it look like, you know, for instance, if you're filming in Vancouver, but it's set as San Francisco, they're constantly fighting to make it look like San Francisco, but
Well,
there's
Woody
nothing
Allen
more.
seems to have had his way. Now, Woody Allen is
Yes.
a quintessential New York filmmaker for many years, and then he filmed in Europe, a couple of films in London, he went to Barcelona, Paris, Rome. But for his latest project, he came to San Francisco, and you obviously helped out with that.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know anything about the story, and give us some insight into why he went to San Francisco?
Well, I can say he's a very secretive man, so I can't give away a lot, but he did write the script entirely for San Francisco. And if any filmmaker fights for being in the place where it is set and filming fully without any studio in the way, it's Woody Allen. He fights to have it in the exact city he's written the script for. So we have that on our side because he wanted to be in San Francisco. The film was about San Francisco, therefore it was shot in San Francisco. And he used so many different neighborhoods. And like we've been talking about, one street can look entirely different. 5 minutes away, it's a totally different look and feel. So he was able to find each kind of setting that he wanted within his script. So, you know, he did write it fully for San Francisco. I can say we're so lucky because we do have our rebate program, and he was a part of the program. So he was able to be here with his budget. He's still considered low budget film, even though he is such a well-known person, but he still fights for every dollar. And he was a part of our program. So I think a lot of it had to do with he finally had success in the box office with Midnight in Paris. And his next script was written for San Francisco. He was able to afford it, so he came. And we were very thankful to have him, but also we fought to have him be a part of our rebate program too.
Yeah. How did the neighborhoods react to Woody Allen coming in? Was any different from any other filmmaker coming in, or did it make any difference that it was a Woody Allen movie?
It was insane, and I mean that in the best way possible because he's just a genius in the filmmaking world, in my opinion, and I think a lot of San Franciscans agreed. We got calls all the time asking where he was going to be filming, if it was possible to be an extra. So it was, and I have to say that his crew, even though he's a bigger known person, he had a smaller crew than a big feature film, studio film coming in. So his impact on the streets isn't as bad or difficult for us to deal with as a film office and to make the neighbors happy. And most people were very happy with the film.
I take it there were no car chases up and down the hills.
There was no bullet car reenaction. No, I mean, we were lucky because his niche is the walk and talk. And so you guys will see that for sure in this film where you see some of the most beautiful places in the city or even the nook and crannies that you haven't seen. And it's just the dialogue that carries it, and it's a wonderful story. I wish I could say more, but it is definitely showcasing the city and all these little neighborhoods that I have actually not seen in a long time. You mentioned some of our earlier San Francisco films, Vertigo, and Hitchcock for sure was definitely.
What's that Barbra Streisand, Ryan O'Neal song?
I don't.
Remember a Barbra Streisand film?
Love Story?
No, What's Up, Doc? Wasn't that?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was some, there was Freebie and the Bean and and Foul Play and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about the incentive? The San Francisco incentive is called SCENE in San Francisco?
Scene,
Yeah.
SCENE,
SCENE
yeah, in San Francisco.
It
Yeah.
started in 2009, right?
Yes,
And
correct.
what's been the impact of that?
It has been wonderful because we are one of the few cities within a state incentive program that has its own rebates to offer. So
In addition to the California
in addition
rebate.
to the California one, and I have to say that the California one is extremely hard to get into that lottery system,
Yeah.
and it's capped, and you're almost guaranteed to not be entered
But
into
Hemingway and
the rebates.
Gellhorn won the lottery, right? They were able to get that.
That's
Yes, and that was a huge part of why they were able to use all our facilities and Tippett Studios and locally to do that digital.
Financially, how much of a rebate did Hemingway and Gellhorn get from the city and from the state? How much did it add up to?
I don't know the
Yeah.
exact.
You know what I know is that they got, it was reportedly a $17 or $18 million film, and it
Yes.
got just under the $600,000 rebate,
Which
From
is the
San
total.
Francisco.
which
From San
was
Francisco.
all the studios, the offices, 2 cups a day, parks, port,
Everything that's
everything
paid
we
to the
could
city
think of.
Right.
is rebated back.
And
So
then, and then
yeah.
I think they got 2.4 under the state. So they
So
got
close
$3
to
million.
$3 million on an $18 million
Yeah.
budget. That's
Which
pretty
is
significant.
pretty
Yes,
interesting.
yeah. And so that, I mean, that's what carries filmmaking to continue to stay here, is these great films. They fight to be here, first off. They make it possible. They try, they apply, they really are going through the struggles to make sure it
You know,
films here. But
speaking of New York with Woody, these scenes, recently we had to shoot a subway scene, and
Yes.
and they had done budgets for LA and New York, and then they called up and said, what can we do in BART, like in the subway? Getting on and off trains,
Yeah.
holding trains, 30 extras between stations. And the estimate in LA was going to be something like 18,000 for a Sunday. And New York was like over 20,000. And I shot it for $3,200 on a Sunday in between Castro and Church, on and off, 30 people. It was amazing. And I remember the producers were like, I did this a month and a half ago, you remember.
Yes.
And it was amazing. Everyone was like, just to talk to him to get into the subways. And I remember there was going to be, I don't know if Woody shot there, but
he actually didn't do, he did a
Yeah.
cable car scene.
yeah.
In the middle of a work day on Market, people were trying to board the cable car while we were filming, and actually that was fun in itself, having Woody experience that, and just everything you imagine and more with that man. But he, we work directly with SFMTA, who handles all these different negotiations, and they are so film friendly and willing to meet you if you're able to work on off hours, for instance, on a Sunday morning when no one else is trying to board, or, I mean, they've been definitely coming around. And Oscar Grant, the story of the shooting at BART that happened, they've actually made a movie that's coming out soon under Forrest Whitaker's production company about that shooting, and BART gave full access to use their facilities for something, you know, BART isn't seen in the best light in this story, but they were able to meet those requirements, shooting on off hours. They had so many extras for this New Year's Eve scene. And so that's part of our office's job, is making all the different departments and agencies within the city happy, but at the same time, giving access to filming, because
Did you guys shoot
it's
in the city?
authenticity.
We didn't shoot in the city on jobs.
I was curious.
No, I've worked in San Francisco before.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I
great.
want to take the incentives conversation a little bit further. Josh, you directed Swing Vote back in 08, right?
Yeah.
07, 08, and that was shot entirely in New Mexico?
Yeah.
Where is it set?
It was set in New Mexico.
Set and shot.
Well, what you were saying was very true. I mean, I think that my first film before that, it was set in the Hudson River Valley, but we shot it in Canada, as so many films go to Canada. And it was hard because I couldn't see the world. If I'm on a street here, if I moved the camera just a little to the right or the left, I would be the Bank of Canada. I couldn't do it. It was very restricting. So I sort of made a pledge to myself to be broke on this one. But this is a different area, though. It's such a neighborhood, suburban area without centrally defined by something like an urban area is, the Palo Alto area is, which it lets you get away with. But on Swing Vote, I set it in New Mexico. Originally, it was set somewhere else, but New Mexico had a great rebate, and that way I could be in New Mexico and I could see the world. And I think you're right. If you fight for having it be in a place that you set it in is the strongest. But it's
Yeah,
hard to
it's hard.
compete with some of these other state incentives.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
This lottery system in California is very hard to get into, and when you do, it's still, even at its best case, not as competitive. But I mean, it's still great. The San Francisco local one's amazing, but it's really hard to compete with these other places that are offering.
Louisiana.
I mean, it's just
I do
really
have to say,
different.
though, recently, a major feature film that called and said, we are now setting up our argument. We're going to a producer soon. We're trying to, sell it right now and figure out which state we want to film in. Now we want to film in New Orleans, but New Orleans has 10 different features set in the time we want to be there, and the Super Bowl, and all these different events going on. So while you're saving this money, getting all those incentives, you are fighting for a crew that will want to really be working with you. it's police officers, everything that goes into filming, especially this feature wants to do some very big scenes, very action-based scenes. Here in San Francisco, we have maybe one or two. We have a full crew. We have people who are willing to work extremely hard for you and are so passionate. And it's definitely more of a family feel with our crew. We're obviously not able to have 10 at the same time, not even budget-wise.
Freddie, you've worked with David Fincher a couple of times, right?
Yes.
Social Network and Zodiac.
Right.
And Zodiac was set in San Francisco largely, right?
Yeah.
And so how much was shot in San Francisco?
We shot here for I think almost 3 weeks. We shot all of our exteriors. We shot at Washington and Cherry, which is one of the murder sites, and we shot inside and outside of the Chronicle. It was great. It was fantastic because there's just things you can't fake that. You can't fake that area downtown around San Francisco. I mean, you can't fake those places. It was one of the things. It was very personal to David because he grew up here and he was a school child during the Zodiac, during the bus scare. So it was very important for him to film here. And I think it's one of the things. I mean, really, when you see the film, San Francisco is the main character of the movie. I mean, there was no way you could have shot it anywhere but there.
And that fog, the creepy effect happening. I mean,
fog.
we tell clients we're like
the moisture in the air. It's just sort of lends to that sort of.
I hear that David's a very demanding guy to work with. Is that?
I love him. I think he's great. He's very passionate, and he'll tell you what he wants. I mean, he doesn't waffle on things. So if you tell him that you can give it to him, then you better be able to give it to him because he'll hold you to it on the day. I mean, he doesn't forget. If you talk about something 4 months earlier in prep, and on the day it's not there, he'll be like, well, where's that? We talked about having a padlock on that fence back there, and chain. Where is it? Well, we'll get it. But it's that kind of detail. But I think, it really helped me become better at my job, working under, in his art departments for those couple movies. He's fantastic. He's demanding, but, it's all on the screen. I mean, I can't say that, any of it's unfounded, for sure.
Yeah. Now, people are talking about a renaissance these days in San Francisco, and I'm wondering how true that is because we hear positive things and we hear negative things about some companies going out of business in recent days in San Francisco. To what extent do we have a renaissance? Is there really growth in filming in San Francisco?
From our aspect, completely changed. I mean, in every single day is growing towards something that's easily permitted. The tiny cameras that can produce high quality video where we can give access to these crews that are smaller, who have smaller equipment, who aren't going to be disrupting as much on location. I can say yes easily to these groups to film where they need to be. I can put them in a tiny little alleyway in Chinatown that the business people don't really want necessarily, but if you're smaller, it really helps. So from our side, we love the Renaissance. I think it's impacted us so much. I think, Ollie, as a scout, how is it?
Is that your perspective also, Patrick?
Yeah,
growth?
I mean, there's more work than I could ever have here. But, I went after Hemingway. I went on to Mavericks, the Curtis Hanson film. We did, when I was driving in on University, we used a house right there with an empty pool for a skateboarding scene when the surfers were breaking into backyards and skateboarding. Somewhere right over there. In those big homes.
What about The Master? Wasn't that also shot?
Yeah,
East Bay.
Yeah, I just saw they really used a lot of the Northeast up there, Mare Island, Vallejo, San Francisco. It was fantastic.
Yeah. They did. And also the other side of it, we just had, I don't know how many people have seen it, but Gymkhana, it was this Ken Block stunt, a viral video, if you will, of filming an entire stunt, 4 days of stunts all over the city. And that impact, this is the first time our office experienced that viral video aftermath that came with it of people calling, asking, how on earth did he close the Bay Bridge and just zoom across it? And how was he on a barge doing donuts? And how is this possible? And for us, we say it is possible, you know, if you meet us in the requirements for safety, obviously there was a lot of safety that went into it, but that effect of having so many people be able to access and look at San Francisco, see it, it's almost free advertisement for the city. And so that side of the Renaissance, people seeing and having access through the internet to see San Francisco, to scout from Google, Google Maps, to be able to pick up something on your iPad while in your own location. I mean, there's so many ways. I'm sure you guys have had so many influences from it.
Yeah, it's funny you say Google Maps. We did a lot of scouting from Google Maps because there were places that we couldn't get to because we just didn't have access. So we would pull up Google Maps and, you know, then we could take a picture and freeze it and then show it to Josh, and then we could pursue it that way rather than sending somebody there and maybe he gets in, maybe he doesn't get in. So it's funny that the way that technology has affected my job, and I'm sure your job as well.
Jump less fences.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
Get bit by dogs less.
big, exactly. You know, angry homeowners.
The pre-scouting, yeah. The scouting before you scout.
I kind of miss it.
Yeah, me, well, a little bit. I sort of sometimes.
And then there's the other side, like you were saying, the distribution. There's a lot of industries that are hurting because of it too.
Yeah.
But
what about the impact of technology? I mean, Silicon Valley is like an engine of world technology. There's so much development here. What is the impact of that on filmmaking in this
Well,
area?
I know. Hemingway showed me. I mean, Phil had never done a movie like that. Everything was, 35 millimeter, and everything was big, arthritic Hollywood films. And all of a sudden, because of Phil Tippett's studio and Chris Morley and the technology, I was finding a little doorway, and they were finding footage, and they were throwing up green screens like here, and sticking them in warehouses, and, a little foreground nonsense that they walked through, and all of a sudden they're all over the world.
And the stitching
So that
between.
technology, and the Bay Area, for some reason, the way they preserve the architecture and they leave, like if you go down to 6th Street and you look at the old painted billboards on the bricks still, like in New York, they're all gone. Like New York, art directors and production designers come here and they're just shooting walls.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
go around San Francisco shooting brick walls going, oh, I miss all these like barbershop murals and
In the advertising, like there was a great Dr. Pepper ad from I think in the late '60s, and I wanted to duplicate it on the wall down in LA, but we couldn't get the owner wouldn't go for it.
But it's all over here. So if you find
especially
a
here.
half a block or an alley of the architecture existing, and then you can sit it in a block you can set up behind with the technology.
Right.
You can kick ass around here.
Yeah.
I want to turn it over to the audience in a minute or so. I'm sure you guys have some questions as well. I just wanted to go back to Josh for a second and ask him about how was the decision made to cast Ashton Kutcher for Steve Jobs?
Well, I think he was extremely passionate about it. I felt that in meeting him, he where he was in his life and the energy he brought and his persona felt very much sort of in line, though maybe not, instantly. I felt very much that sometimes you just know as a director. So
I mean, physically, he fits the bill.
yes, he does. But it had to be more than that, obviously.
Sure.
But no, it was a great experience. And going back to the technology of it, it's the first film I've done on a digital format, on the Alexa, which is a high end. But it's remarkable to me that connection that's happening now between the ability to film and then have that instantly on people's iPads, which we had, and people are coloring as we're filming. So you're actually doing color, you're correcting as you're filming, and dailies on iPads. And I think it's all getting into people's hands. I mean, that's a lot of what's occurring right now. It's becoming, at the same time, you sometimes step onto a film set and they're huge, and so you start thinking, how is our footprint this big? You're talking about smaller footprints and so on. Yeah. But I think it's
But you're bringing the post-production closer to the production, right?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
And it's all becoming closer as far also as, I was just speaking to the composer, and you can be in Los Angeles and the orchestra is in London. And because of the kind of interactive, everyone is looking at the same music that's being displayed on screens, and he's conducting in LA, and they're responding in London, and it's making music that they're mixing in Prague, and it's the conference call gone insane,
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a bit of a little bit of a wistfulness about it, because it is in every way and form disconnecting us from people. But at the same time, it is making it simpler and more effective. But I was saying to the composer, boy, wouldn't it be great to be in London? I mean, that, like, the simplest thought. Well, yes, it would be, but we're getting the same results here, so. But I think overall, having gone digital on this film, like a lot of directors, you hold on to film until you experience it, the digital, and you realize how much opportunity it is.
Are you going to abandon film now?
No, I don't. Oh, I know. I don't think so. I don't think so. But as the technology goes further to getting the aesthetic that we are still missing a little bit in the digital, and it starts to replicate it to that extent, whereby you're no longer missing that feeling and that texture of film that we come to movies with. We come to the movies with this history of seeing films, and films are just the analog way in which they capture images onto celluloid and all of that. That strange, slight, fuzzy disconnect that film gives us, that dreamy quality, that digital can't quite replicate.
You think digital will be able to?
I think it will be, but I think that we all, in our daily lives, our brains filter out stimulus. I mean, it decides to focus on you, and everything else is this watercolor right now. And the same thing with sound. It's a filter on the world. It's the way that it interprets light. We're not seeing it as it is, obviously, and the digital's inability to replicate that nuance, that its tendency to show us the world and its sharpness and its depth of field, which we never see the world in. I mean, I don't look there and see everything in perfect. You're as sharp as that back wall, but our constant torturing of the medium to give us what film gave us. But we're getting closer now with the right lenses. And on this film, we used old lenses. We used lenses that were 30 years old.
With the new camera,
with the
old
new
lenses.
cameras. And they gave us flares that we saw in films in the 70s. And it was able to give us anomalies in the lenses connected to the new technology. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Do we have any questions out there? There's mics wandering around. Mr. Gatos in the back.
Yes. Those of us who've been at Variety a long time know that Northern California has long wanted, the filmmaking community has long wanted to have a real center and a vibrancy and alternative to Southern California. If you could wave a magic wand, if there were a 5-point program, what are the most important priorities to really boost filmmaking in Northern California? Is it subsidies? Is it a center? Is it facilities? What are the key things to really boost the levels of filmmaking in Northern California?
I'll just quickly on my side of it, and I can only tell you what I get back when I want to shoot in San Francisco. It's the general thing that anyone gets back wanting to film in California is just the level of rebate, and that's something that is a government scenario. The only other pushback I usually get is that it's just a little bit more difficult to permit and to shut stuff down. It's just, the nature of a film is, if I'm going to shoot in San Francisco, I don't want to shoot on the, in the east side or somewhere where I might as well just be somewhere else. I'm going to want to be places that are iconic. And those places are going to be to shut down for 12 hours and to control. How much control do I get? How expensive is it? And then all of a sudden it starts to build to the point where people budget it and they come back with their hair up and they say, it's so crazy, Josh. Why are we sacrificing the quality of what could be on the screen for the money we're going to throw away to just secure a big place? And that's not just San Francisco, but places like New York City and places that have decided to say, all right, we'll just give you lots of, come shoot, recently even more than before. It's become a little easier to shoot in New York. It's a communal decision that has to be, we will now accept this as a necessity for the community, and that it will have a trickle-down effect, meaning that we will have restaurants and hotels, and that's what happened in New Mexico. Is all of a sudden you make a decision, but the other thing that's hard in San Francisco is it's like Boston a little bit. It's such a proud, architecturally beautiful place that doesn't have a film community inherent to it that has that psychology. So it's an intrusion, and you have to make a decision that it's a wanted intrusion, and that it'll only benefit. There was somebody who was telling me recently, I'm babbling, but they did that film about the dolphin with no tail. What was that film? Dolphin Tail. Right, thank you.
Just missed it.
And it was a great story because I think it's a story you need to tell every region. And they were saying that all of a sudden this little area, and this was a little aquarium that was going bankrupt before this movie, and tourism increased and things were increasing in this area, and they actually didn't know why and how. Like because they just couldn't quite figure out the dynamics and the paradigm of what was going on to increase the revenue by like millions and millions and millions of dollars that affected restaurants and everything. And they were able to do this whole like micro thing, and they found out it was because of this aquarium, because of the amount of people that the film, by showing the light on this one place, was able to generate and revive this one. And by reviving this one place, it revived the area. And so it has to be a whole cloth, sort of all-in attitude that embraces it. And I also, the only last thing I'll say about that is I also don't know about the relationship between San Francisco and Hollywood, like what the attitude is about that. There's the age-old discussion of Northern and Southern California, but there's nothing more Southern California than a bunch of Hollywood people coming in and deciding that, taking over the place. So there also has to be a sensitivity on the industry's part to know that when we're coming to San Francisco, that it's special and that you take care. So it's kind of a goodwill thing.
There's very key things from our office that we're trying to do right now. As far as, we just had Woody Allen as a perfect example of someone, so they were able to budget to be on location in San Francisco, a part of our rebate program. We did have that available at the time, so this definitely benefited early on. He's part of the program, he's going to be saving money. But from that, the aftermath that comes is how many jobs were created. We have a vendor's discount program where restaurants, hotels, we have every production, not even a part of the rebate, can have all of those fees discounted on hotels, on flights, restaurants, just many vendors. And we're working constantly with the neighborhood because, like you're saying, this is not Hollywood, and it won't be, and it's both good and bad because the neighbors aren't used to filming. But at the same time, as an office, we're able to show exactly how it benefits the city with tourism, with all that comes from job creation and these little details that these are people who are trying to make a career and stay in San Francisco for film. So we're working fully to try and continue to have those here. And that being said, we try to keep the accessibility and the ease of permitting. I work on it daily to try and make it easier to get you filming on location in Chinatown after hours, where most people don't even speak English in that neighborhood, and we're going to get approval from each business owner and get it happening. Because we're a yes department. I don't say no, I say yes, and how can we do this?
The other thing is
that's key.
You know, when I was scouting for this movie I went to Austin, and that's where Robert Rodriguez has like a studio there. And it's not necessarily the most sensible place for there to be so much filmmaking going on, but it is. It's not that far of a flight. And it made me really think about places like this area, that if you decide this is where you want to film, then make a decision to build that community, to get that old warehouse that could become a sound stage, and to set a film here and use local talent. And you see, the more you use the local talent, the more you'll realize how much talent left because it couldn't work here, but that will come back when they know they can.
Yes.
And
That's true. I just can't help but the NorCal, SoCal thing. I've shot a lot of movies in LA, New York, Boston, Philly, Chicago, London. When I come back here, when you're talking about what it's going to be here, it's really, to me, it's none of this. It's all about that there's this great culture of creativity here. In San Francisco, in the Bay Area, kicks ass. I mean, the Beat Generation, Bay Area Realism, Berkeley, Stanford, down here, all the minds. It's not, forget the money, forget it all. There's great minds here, great talent, and a can-do attitude. I mean, San Francisco, 60s and Haight-Ashbury, I mean, the Beat Generation, Kerouac, Ginsberg, Francis, George. I mean, there's a lot of brains here that can make, it doesn't have to be at Fisherman's Wharf. I hate the term iconic image.
Yeah.
If
Everywhere's
someone calls
iconic.
me up and wants to see the goddamn Fisherman Wharf sign, or Coit Tower,
No.
or the fucking Bay, you know, I'm so sick of all of that. It's like Hemingway was everywhere but that.
Yes, and Woody Allen
Okay?
too. They had
It
to come
doesn't
back.
matter.
to do-
It's the brains behind it. It's a doorway and a story. We need to write the stories and make them. We can do them here. We can do them anywhere. The weather's better here. There's this incredible intellectual group. There's all these brains. Just do it, finance it, and shoot it here. Or shoot it wherever you want, but it can be done here as well as anywhere else. The weather's great. And before Hollywood, they shot the first Westerns and the first movies in the East Bay Hills. Everyone knows it. They went down when someone bought water, I don't know, whatever Chinatown movie was, and they moved to Hollywood. But it all started here, right?
These
So
are the
why-
types of
it's
people
not-
we work with. I mean,
No,
this
no,
is
it's
in a
just-
good way. In a good way.
A lot of
It's
passion.
just a ridiculous conversation.
Yeah, it
and,
is. It
And the producers and the studios in LA, look, I had to clear, when I was a punk, I had to clear Scott Baio chasing on a skateboard in Coldwater Canyon with Jodie Foster and Foxes. And I went for weeks knocking on doors, butlers, manservants, help, to sign off that I could do this at night. No. I'm going, what is going on here? So I do the one smart thing I've ever done in my life. I went and checked who owned these houses. And it was all people that worked at the studios. And it was all people that had asked me the month before to clear in San Francisco, and why the hell couldn't I clear? What's wrong with those people? Don't they want business? Don't they know we bring money in? And their butlers are telling me no. So I went back, and then we went to the studios and said, all your guys are not signing this. And we want to shoot, I forget the studio, Scott Baio chasing Jodie Foster down a stupid alley for one night. They all signed. Everybody signed. We did the shoot, you know. But the point is that, you know, how many movies are shot in LA now? It's all TV.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nobody's shooting there. It's all destroyed. You want to go run across the plaza downtown LA, 12 grand. You want that parking lot to put the crappers in for the stars, $5,500. I know. You come here, you want to run across the Bank of America building by the Bankers Hearts, $3,200. You want a parking lot, $1,800. You want to shoot in BART or the Muni, $3,200, not 18 grand. I mean, those are hard facts. I don't know what everything else costs. I know what it costs to park a porta potty in a driveway. You know, I know what we have here. So it's just write the stories for here.
And people do, and that's
So
what's
that's
great.
all I think.
Yeah.
But you know what? But what you're saying is interesting because that kind of passion is important that reaches a sort of local governmental level.
Yeah.
Because you know the reasons they are the Albuquerques and which have now been shot out.
Yeah.
And the Michigans and the Pittsburghs because somebody said what you said,
Right.
but they said it you know. And once you make it so, people. That's why I was mentioning Austin because it's just a creative place.
Yeah.
It's just a place where I met like 5 DPs that I loved. I met production designers.
I mean, Malik's in a
Malik
in a mall.
Malik is in a
In a corner,
It's
you got a
Malik's,
Malik mall.
It's Terrence Malik's people.
What the
it's
hell is he doing in there?
It's Rodriguez. And all they did is they made the decision that this is where we want to live and shoot, and we will do it, and we will make it so.
Yeah.
and now Texas has a pretty good, relatively good rebate. So, I mean, it is one of those decisions, and you're right.
Yeah.
Just write it for here. Maybe.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you all can do it.
Okay. Anybody got other
Go for
questions
it.
out there? Over here?
Commercial in San Francisco next week, and our budget is a small commercial, $10,000. We wanted to shoot one of the cable cars, and they told us $1,000 to shoot a cable car.
Yes, use of image fee. They have trademarked it.
But
And
couldn't it be a tiered for like us little guys, like a tiered thing?
it's one of the most difficult things for our office is having to tell people it is that price. And
How about the
It's-
motorized ones?
yes,
Did you look
that's
it up?
exactly what I was going to say. You can-
$350.
Wheels,
And they
just
have
don't
the
shoot
old
the bottom.
one, cardboard across the front, drive on the
Yeah.
tracks.
And these are the kinds of things.
I mean,
Don't do
it's
that,
not-
please.
No, you do. The tracks are there. Drive on them. I mean,
Yeah.
for Bay's thing, The Rock, where it was painted the tracks on the hill next to the hill. And then the city was calling forever because we didn't get them up right away, or they didn't get them up.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
she
There are
can give you the
things
number.
out of your, I pull them out of my back pocket when we need to, as far as budget saving types of, this guy's he's chock
I
full of
don't
them.
know.
But, like he just said, that's what I was about to say, is that while you can't use a working, running one because their main thing is tourism and they get a lot of money from it. So
I
why
don't
would they want
think
it?
they should. I don't think anybody should have to pay. They're like
Neither do I,
no,
but-
they're branding like the baseball stadium. Like you want to drive by the baseball stadium, the San Francisco Giants baseball stadium. They're branding that. They want you to pay them to have the stadium behind. I mean, we're
Yes.
your balting place.
Yeah.
You know, the bridge wants to brand it, the Golden Gate Bridge.
No, they're
Give me a
never going to be
break.
able to.
Cable
No,
cars,
no.
public transportation, I think it's nonsense. It should all be free for us, right?
Just
it's
go
crazy.
for it.
No, you don't have to pay anything. I mean, it should be free. You should have a cable car in the background. I mean, what the hell?
The thing is, that's a reflection, that would have been a shot in our commercial that would have reflected San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's not going to be there now.
Yeah.
Right.
The Rice-A-Roni show. It's great. Real original.
This,
Anybody else out there?
I
Lady.
did that once where we had to have a cable car go up Conzelman Road, like, across the bridge for the Asian market for Rice-A-Roni. And the cable car had to go up the hill, and that's ridiculous. Yeah.
We got a
yeah,
question,
lot that
lady
goes
over
into
here.
it.
Has a que-
Yes. Yes.
We just finished a script written in San Francisco about San Francisco.
Yes.
So we're your
Way to
minds,
go.
we're doing it.
Yeah.
And be a part of our rebate program. Seriously, it's open, it's yours for the taking. This is for everyone and beyond. We're here to help you save money. We are from the government, but we're trying to get filming to happen, not to not happen. That's what everyone else is for. So.
We got 2 questions in the back, and 3 questions on that side of the room. So in the back.
Small budget, small footprint, shooting, using the technology,
Yeah.
changing the entire landscape.
Yeah.
Just a couple words, please.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason Hemingway had any problems, it was really tiny at camera. I mean, you must be sick to have to turn a camera around and you got to move, 30 trucks and everything. I mean, it's insane. The only problem with Hemingway was when you get all those stars, you have all those trailers. So it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But if the stars, the talent, the directors will take smaller trailers.
Like
can
Woody
turn-
Allen's
You
didn't
can
have
turn
any
the
trailers.
cameras around more.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like if you're small, you can move,
Yeah.
right? No, I'm teasing.
No, it's true though. It's true. The footprint question is very.
Yeah.
It's what we all battle with, and every director and every producer says, "Man, we're going to go next time. We're going to have a small
Right.
footprint. We're not going to quite have as many
Famous last
grips. We're
words.
not going to have as much a big electrical."
Yeah.
And then you start to get into the unions, and you start to get to everyone has to have their own truck, and everyone has to have their own transportation. And if the second, and I still on this one, as much as I know all the rules, by the way, I still get stunned. It's like, well, I want this, but then you have to have an extra driver to drive this person to that place, and it becomes more and more difficult when you get outside of these sort of micro budgets. But I think ultimately it will, and then with digital capture, you do then need a DIT guy. It's not as if you don't. It doesn't break it down too much. But I think ultimately we will get smaller. I've always said that my second unit shooting is always great because there's something psychological in the film industry about a second unit, especially not on a big second unit. Like on a major feature, an action film, a second unit will be as big. But it's just a smaller unit. And they just they budget it smaller, and you go out and you are so quick, and you're just bam, bam, and you realize that everyone's doing what they know how to do, and they're free to do it, and they have less people hindering them. I just did this thing, with Russell Carpenter, who's a huge DP, and he was operating the second unit, and and he was just, you could just see Russell, you could feel him, and he's just like getting into it again. And you kind of think that's the way it always should be. But places like San Francisco force you a little bit. You just don't, it's a real estate issue mostly. You shouldn't have many streets.
I think the films become, I think the quality of the films with a smaller crew sort of become better. They're more cohesive because there's not as many or stops along the way when you have 3 less positions between the camera operator and the DP. There's just them, so I think it just sort of lends to making better films too. And
I mean, it's the script, right?
You said the thing that was weird. The trickle down of what you said is where it really is. When you go to finance a film, you need an actor. And the pressure to cast bigger actors now has never been bigger because of the financial state of the independent world, which is all linked to banks, because independent money is just banks loaning against the value of the actor. So the second you have an amazing film, you want to do it with an unknown actor or a low-level actor. You can't quite get the money, but then you get the actor who's a bigger, you get Nicole Kidman, and then wherever your bottom line budget for, room, board, travel,
security,
all of that on your budget, it goes up $90 grand.
Yeah. 90 Can I just say though that from Woody Allen, so he is, and I think people know this who are working in the industry.
They don't get paid, I don't think.
No
he doesn't actually
star
pay the
treatment,
actors.
no star treatment whatsoever, no trailers, which is fantastic because you can have a great film about the city made entirely for the city,
which is great.
And then none of all these other problems that come into play.
But
he's stubborn in that way though. So I mean, people who want to work with him. Really
they work with him they work with him for scale.
That's
usually.
Right.
He's Woody Allen.
They put
there
themselves up.
So we have this really is a spectrum. It depends, but
we got time for just 1 or 2 quick questions back there, and then you, and we'll wrap.
Question for the Film Commission: are you working on any rebate programs for equipment vendors, camera, grip, or anything like? We just shot a film here and had to rent all of our equipment from LA because we got it for half the price, and
but was
it just seems like going for what?
I was just gonna say, was it cheap to bring it up?
Yeah,
cheaper.
50% of what it would have cost to rent in the Bay Area. So we would have rather spent our money in the Bay Area, and I think long term. Or do you see? Are you working on anything like that?
Oh, daily we're working to try and get everything included in our vendors discount program and in our rebate. There are people that ask about having web series included and all these different fees that we're trying to work towards having. So it is a work in progress. Like I said, we're a city trying to compete with state incentives and all these different things. So at some point, it's very hard to try and match what the other states are offering. But that's something we're working on, and we have Real Directory and these groups that work really hard to have equipment available for filming. And there's less competition when you do want it, so that's the good news, is that you're not fighting with everyone else like in LA to get that stuff. So.
Well, that's right. I mean, when I did my film, we couldn't. There was no helicopter here. There was a local thing. We had to bring that from LA, to do aerials, the kind we wanted to do, because it just didn't. However, that's when we're talking about the top down. That's where the government has to come in and say, this is where we should shoot and give people incentives, and that will help with some of the equipment issues that you're talking about on a low level or even on a huge level, where we literally can't find a helicopter anymore. We have a couple of the pilots out might live up here, but it's like it becomes this thing where it is actually cheaper, the equipment rig and everything like that. So
they don't have the rigs. They have South Bay helicopters.
They have copies. They just don't have the rigs.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question over here.
It's a work in progress. I can say that.
Hi, I'm a senior and interested in film production, and based on my own research, many opportunities to get greater exposure in the film industry exist for college students. Based on well, what opportunities are there, such as for unpaid internships, exist for high schoolers like me?
I think that we have interns on films all the time. I mean, I think that's summer jobs and that kind of thing.
We had quite a few interns.
We had
on
quite a
jobs.
few.
We had,
And in fact, and a lot of the times when the interns are really doing well, they'll get promoted and,
I can
become, very valuable to anybody. That's the only advice I ever give is become indispensable, because then they'll realize your value, and then pretty quickly they'll hire you to be an actual PA, and a department will snatch you. We had one in our last film with Erica where that was like, by the time she was done, she was just a freshman in college, I think, and it was like by the time she was done, she walked in and she said, "You can start paying me now," because we were really depending on her
Seriously.
for certain departments, and they
So
did.
the internships are not paid.
They're not paid. No.
Usually not. There are
they are
incubation
paid
programs in the
knowledge.
city.
They're paid knowledge.
BAYCAT,
Pretty well.
BAYCAT, all caps. It's a great program that is really trying to bring the youth in. Like you said, if you're not in college yet, but you still are interested and you're wanting to pick the industry, people's brains about just what life is like doing film in the Bay Area. Great program. There's a few other ones. It's definitely less, but there are people, and the thing is, it's the passion and the personalities here that people want to help you succeed here. That's great. I mean, I went to school down in LA, and it's harder. There's more competition there. Here you have the opportunity to be a big fish, small pond, and work with people who really want to help you stay here too. And then you're one big family. I mean, it sounds very cliche, but it is mostly true what you hear about. Really, you do have to fight to stay here, but there are programs and people that want to help. So.
And by the way, as far as that goes as well, if there's screenplays and people who have stuff set in San Francisco, you get in touch with directors like me and people who are like, like what you were just saying about the script. If it's a good script, then people will fight for it to be made. And if it's set here, there's that connection.
And we're a public office, so our information is public. You can call and say, what's currently being filmed here? I can provide you with phone numbers of production offices, emails, so you can reach out to them, say, I'm interested, I can work for a little bit, and just help you in any way. I mean, the doors are very much open here. It's the great news. So it's
Okay,
definitely
on that
doable.
optimistic note, we have to wrap it up. I'd like to thank all our panelists for a great session.
All right, and thank you, Peter, for hosting this, and a big thank you to Variety for hosting all these panels throughout the
Thank
Talks
you.
program. There's another talk at 3 p.m. With Litro cameras, and I think there's actually an interactive session where you get to play with the Litro cameras. Excellent. That was great.